I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Okay, Flagrant Howls also wasn't on the road covering this team on Friday night. That's right. We'll get into it. Man, there's crazy hubbub surrounding not only the game from a few nights ago, but also just like the lack of coverage of it too. And obviously, we are among the guilty. We don't travel for Wolves road games, and we didn't bother to crack a microphone over the weekend. We also have football podcasts and whatnot. But let's talk about the team and some of the awful announcing story that came out this weekend here as the Wolves look to get back on track tonight. This is the State of the Wolves edition of Flagrant Howls, presented in part by Element Hotel Decks, right in the North Loop.
Yeah, great spot to stay if you're looking for a staycation. If you're looking to, maybe you're coming in for a Wolves game. I see there's the new stage lighting, arena lighting that's in there at Target Center. Stay at the Element Hotel, steps away from the Target Center. It also is got some great amenities. It's pet friendly. It has great Wi-Fi. It has a business center, fitness center, all the stuff you need. So go to scorenorth.com/element for 15% off your room rate. Scorenorth.com/element. Awesome place. Go check out the Element Hotel. Scorenorth.com/element.
And pretty close to Element Hotel is Brixworth, just like maybe a block or two down the street. Brixworth, a great spot to hang out for home games before and after, and for away games during the game. You can eat and drink with fellow Timberwolves fans. That signature Nas Reed Hazy IPA that they have. And Brixworth in the North Loop is close to Target Center, so there's some cheap parking options. Love the dry rub wings, by the way, at Brixworth. If you have not had them, you must. And then report back and let us know what you think. They also brew their own craft beer at the OG Burnsville location with a focus and a passion on hazy IPAs, like that Nas Reed Hazy IPA. So Brixworth in the North Loop. All right, boys, State of the Wolves. I'll give you the overview here. The Wolves are currently 7th in the Western Conference, so they would be hosting a play-in game if the season ended today. Playoff odds from ESPN's Basketball Power Index, 94% chance to make the playoffs, 6% chance to get to the conference finals for the third year in a row, and a 0.5% chance to win the Larry O'Brien. All of those are pretty much exactly what they were a week ago, despite the ridiculous loss on Friday night to Phoenix. How about this? Offensive rating, the Wolves are 7th. Defensive rating, the Wolves are 7th. And overall net rating, the Wolves are 7th. So pretty definitively, the Wolves are the 7th best team in the NBA so far through this portion of the schedule. Let's get into the biggest storyline before we get to favorite and least favorite Wolves things. But I think the biggest storyline is, and it's been a couple days now, but the loss on Friday night to Phoenix, the way that it happened, fans rightfully so wanting some answers from key Wolves stakeholders like Chris Finch, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, who absolutely pissed down their legs in Phoenix. An NBA Cup game. You say you care about the NBA Cup. You want that banner hung inside Target Center. And then you do that in the final minute. But then people realize that you got the Star Tribune, the Pioneer Press, the Athletic. Dane Moore is a beat podcaster. I'm not criticizing these people individually, especially like Dane runs his own solo thing.
Right.
But none of the Wolves beat people were in Phoenix for this game. And so Chris Finch, in the face of a terrible loss, had a 35-second post-game press conference, 2 questions, and obviously there was no drilling down into the weeds of what happened. And then they get the weekend and they play another game tonight, but then the wind kind of blows the game away, whatever. But people wanted some answers from the stakeholders, but there was no one. And it shined a light on the Star Tribune has essentially stopped traveling our guy Chris, the Pioneer Press, so travel budget for the long. And you used to work at the Star Tribune for 2 decades.
Yeah.
Awful Announcing picked this up over the weekend and did a piece on how there's basically no traveling Wolves media for situations like that in Phoenix on Friday night. What are your thoughts on that, kind of boiling over into the national media on Saturday?
Well, I think just as importantly as Finch being, and my guess is that Finch, like coaches, don't always mind that. Like you might think at first, oh, he's glad he didn't have to answer questions, but like you can send messages that way.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that Finch didn't want to, would not have enjoyed answering more questions. More importantly, or just as importantly too, is the locker room goes uncovered then. Like that's the other thing. You go talk to players. Players are the ones who are often in the face of adversity or a loss like that more candid, and those guys were off the hook completely. And I guarantee you, they loved it. They could walk out of there. They probably talked to an Associated Press person from Phoenix and said, "Night, see ya, bad loss, bye bye." This is the second time in 2 years this exact same thing has happened. If you guys recall, we did a show very much like this last year after that ill-fated Toronto loss. When
right.
Gobert and Randall had their kerfuffle and Gobert purposely took a 3-second call. As I recall, nobody was on that trip, and the same thing happened, which is the players walked out of the locker room, and because the NBA plays so many games, it's not like you can capture that moment again. It's gone. My personal opinion of the travel thing, and I think I said this a year ago, and I'll say it again. Yeah, first of all, like Dane Moore, you can't, like, if he travels, that's awesome, but you can't expect him, hey, Dane, you got to be traveling all the time. My biggest fault here is 100% the Star Tribune. The Pioneer Press hasn't traveled consistently or at all for the most part, and Jace Frederick does a great job, but he hasn't traveled consistently with the Wolves maybe ever. Like there used to be games when the Wolves were, I think it was in the early days of the Tibbs era, where the Pioneer Press didn't even cover every home game. So like the Pioneer Press is the Pioneer Press. Their budget, not great. The Athletic, they can travel. Johnny certainly can, but the Star Tribune is the one that's always traveled, and not just the beat person. You know, if Chris Hine takes a road trip off previously, his backup would then travel. They were at every game, and they are the biggest. I believe that they still call themselves this, the biggest news source in the state. They are. It's on them, in my opinion, to travel. And the fact that they're not is an absolute disservice. And here's the problem. It's a disservice to the readers. And here's what people will say, because I saw this. I saw this when the awful announcing story came out. And what the comeback is, well, this is why you have to support them. Because if you don't support, this is what happens when you don't subscribe. If you don't support local journalism like the Star Tribune, they don't travel as much. To which I say, hold on a second here. One, I support them, but two, and here's my biggest problem. They are giving you reason not to subscribe by not traveling. So
right. Like what is their differentiator? For
right.
years and years and years, one of their key differentiators was we are at everything.
Which is big.
Even on the nights where, because it is a valid point that if let's say you go to 41 NBA road games, Minnesota Timberwolves, there are many years where 38 of them, no one gives a rip. Audience, whatever. I would argue that now that the Wolves have been to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, and they are, you could argue pretty strongly that of the three major men's teams in town, the hockey, so Timberwolves, Wild, Twins, and Vikings, the Wolves are absolutely the closest to winning a championship right now, having knocked on the door for a couple of years. The public interest, your who's hot?
I said my club is really hot.
Oh, the Wild.
The Wild's
okay.
playing great hockey right now. Don't sleep on the Wild.
Okay. And hey, the Minnesota United is playing for a spot in the conference finals or whatever on the soccer side. But it's like I've always hated that argument. We kind of lived in that world in radio for a long time when we used to do a 4-hour show on an AM radio station. And you bang your head on the wall, support your local AM radio station. Listen, you can't bet. You could beg people to consume content the way that you want, but ultimately it's up to you as a media entity to create and serve the content in a way that connects with the audience enough to have it be a business, right? So there's a whole discussion about that. But what I find interesting here too is this is a classic example of why you need third-party media to cover these teams and these sporting events in these leagues, because that was a great example on Friday night of the bleep hits the fan, and there are questions to be asked, critical things to be poked at, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Timberwolves would say, "Hey, listen, we got a big platform here. We don't really need third-party media." Well, they're not. You're not going to get like Timberwolves Twitter, Instagram, Timberwolves.com's not going to write or put a video out or a podcast out criticizing the way that Chris Finch didn't put Jalen Clark in on the last defensive possession, or the way that Anthony Edwards missed 2 free throws and threw a ridiculous inbounds pass. You're not getting that from like the team-sponsored media. You need third-party media comes in to poke where it's necessary and hold accountable where it's necessary. And it was just a glaring omission of that on Friday night, and it goes up to the entities that strip the travel budget.
Yeah, and so the Strip now is not, at least they do travel. They're not traveling consistently with the Wolves, the Wild, but they're doing the pandemic thing, which is they're having their writers cover the game from their couch. But the problem there is in the pandemic, teams bent over backwards to do Zoom calls or conference calls, so you could ask questions. Well, that's not a perfect world, but now that's out. So, like, literally, what the Star Tribune is doing is they're having like Chris Hine try to pick up quotes from, I don't know, in that case, off TV. So yeah, I fault them first and foremost, because if you're going to take pride in being the biggest news gathering service in the state, you need to be traveling with teams. And I know that their emphasis now is on their big prep projects, and that's fine. But when it comes to the major teams, at the end of the day, those are the teams that you need to be covering, because if you want to do prep separately, knock yourself out. But you need to be on the road, because you know what? It is inviting, and we've seen this 2 consecutive years now, it is inviting something like what happened on Friday when no one is there. Like the sports karma gods just bite you right in the ass and give you a juicy story that you can't really cover.
And it's like, and not to tell the Star Tribune how to run their budget or do their business. I have no idea behind the scenes, but
knock yourself out.
When you are
you might have some good ideas that they should listen to.
when you are this long respected credentialed outlet that has been not only at home games but road games for decades and decades and decades, when you take that unique selling point away from your business model and your reputation, right, now you are in a sea of a bajillion other people that are covering games from their couch. It's never been easier to launch a platform in sports media and cover a game from your couch than it is in 2025 and 26.
Amen.
And so if you're not going to use that leverage and that credential power and that credibility that's been built up over decades and decades, you are just one step closer to being just like anybody else who's, so I'm not putting it on Chris. I love Chris. He's awesome at his job.
Oh,
and that dude would love to be at all the road games.
Yeah, this is
would
not
love
Chris
to be at all the road games.
Or
and
Sarah.
Chris, and 100%. And if given all right, now you're in the same pool as everyone else, their coverage would still shine. Chris, especially, I mentioned Chris because I know him personally. We all do, and I think he's awesome at his job. But it's unfortunate that this is sort of the way of the media world, and a situation like that happens on Friday night, and the publications that you lean on and respect and would look for some accountability, it ain't there because no one's traveling.
Yeah, I would say on it, 2 things that come to mind are, number one, and yes, every different outlet finds what works for them. For the Star Tribune, they're really leaning into this prep thing. Just even talking to other people that work for the Star Tribune in the last year, like it drives a lot of clicks for them. It drives a lot of now potential revenue, which is great. Us 3 can speak on the fact of, man, I didn't know that this was going to be such a big thing for us. Mm-hmm. We didn't know 5.5 years ago when it was just us 3. We knew the Vikings were big. We had no idea it should be taking up actually like 75 to 90% of our time and work ethic, because that's the biggest thing that drives our viewership and everything around it. And if that means we got to maybe siphon off and maybe distance ourselves from Twins coverage, even though we love baseball as just sports fans and everything else, we learned, all right, this really, really works for us. And if I'm looking at it, just from the grand scheme of things, and again, coming from a guy who loves baseball and loves the Twins, I feel like the Timberwolves are second right now of the 4 men's major sports. I'm being very clear here. The 4 men's major sports, Timberwolves are second to the Vikings in terms of not just contention, but of interest and interesting things to cover. So you probably should prioritize the Timberwolves second to the Vikings. The second thing, which is external from the Star Tribune or media companies, is I think this opens up an unfortunate Pandora's box of, in my opinion, good PR teams want as much coverage as possible. And I know when on the road it becomes a little bit more difficult when you're not in your own barn. But what I don't want to have happen is, you lose a game like that, and I'm sure, and I'm not saying that this happened to the Timberwolves PR side of things, but they're like, oh man, we get to escape that for 30 seconds. Like that type of mindset, that's a horrible place to be. You want people covering that because fans deserve to know what's going on. So I guess when I look at it, just from my 30,000 foot Declan view, that's kind of the two things that really stand out to me.
Yeah, you don't want the new norm to be, oh man, that's so great. We can let our guard down on the road. Not that every bad game needs to be a big crisis and come to Jesus. There's no one needs to get fired after that game on Friday. Although to transition into our least favorite things, I saw a lot of people calling for Finchie's head.
I saw some tweets.
So least favorite current Wolves thing. For me, I'll start with the meltdown on Friday night in Phoenix. You had an 8-point lead with like 50 seconds to go, and you didn't score a point the rest of the way. You missed free throws. You pissed the whole thing away, and you come back from down however many points in the first half, and Anthony Edwards is trash talking and Dylan Brooks, all this stuff. It is one of the most embarrassing losses of the Anthony Edwards, Chris Finch era. And there's been a few of them. There was that Pistons loss on New Year's Eve a few nights ago. There's been some bad losses to bad teams, but to have an 8-point lead with 50 seconds to go. And I think if there was a pie chart, people want Finch. Like there's a couple things that Finch probably could have done differently. And I think in general, just tightening up this team's IQ and it's just sensibility and some of these close, late, clutch games would fall on Finch. Not putting Jalen Clark in for the final defensive possession seems criminal to me. He's one of the best on-ball defenders in the game. But I got hammered for this on Twitter the other night, but I stand by it, man. There's a bunch of things you can poke at. Julius Randle missing free throws in the final minute, going rogue on a couple of plays. But if all things are equal, except for your lead superstar, who was criticized, by the way, by Jace Frederick in the Pioneer Press before the game, and he comes out guns a-blazing and drops a bunch of points, but the game is 48 minutes, the game is 48 minutes. And in the final minute, he missed 2 free throws that probably iced that game and threw one of the worst inbounds pass turnovers. Absolute clown show. And if you want to put it back on Finch, why is Anthony Edwards throwing an inbounds pass? Shouldn't he be the one that's getting open in separation? And a guy who's almost a 90% free throw shooter, shouldn't he be like hunting for more free throws? But dude, if you want to be the best player in the NBA, to piggyback off Jace's column from a few days ago, it's a fair criticism. Just because you had a great first 47 minutes, lock it in, hit those 2 free throws, and don't turn the ball over inexplicably when you're trying to protect a 5-point lead. Brutal final minute for Ant and others, but I put Ant at the top of that pie chart of blame.
That whole 49 seconds was absolutely bizarre. You talk about a car crash. I mean, you're up by 8 and you disintegrate. And everyone who was important disintegrated. Ant did it. Julius had 2 turnovers?
Yeah, it was bad.
Absolutely mishandling the basketball. Yeah, the fact that Jalen Clark wasn't playing was super bizarre. And the Suns, I mean, Devin Booker had fouled out. So it's you got to win the game, give up 6 points. I don't care. You got to win that game. That was a colossal meltdown. It was disturbing. Now, I guess my question is this: is that one game, and do they recover quickly from that? Or is that sort of like the template for what this team is about, true, and part of their DNA? And to your point, Phil, and this has been complained a lot with Finch's teams on and off, which is their basketball IQ. Like, this conversation feels like it goes back 2 years.
Yeah,
there have been certain times where we've talked about that. And that is on Finch to have a smarter team as far as guys being prepared. But that whole thing, it was late on a Friday. So it was, outside like the weekday radar of things, but it was awful to watch.
It was a disaster. Any other least favorite things from you guys on this State of
Rex,
the
you got
Wolves?
Yeah, I'll give you one. So, Nas has kind of stepped up here after a slowish start, and there are a lot of things off the court for him. So, give him the grace that he needs. But I saw this today on ESPN.com, and it's like the biggest early season contender question. So it lists off like half the league, that teams that look like they're in good shape. What question needs to be kind of answered from a long haul of for them to obviously be legitimate contenders. So Naz Reid's given them like 13.1 points off the bench, which is great. But right now, Minnesota ranks 28th in both minutes and points per game by reserve players.
Wow.
So I will say, though, like, for example, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Washington Wizards, the Dallas Mavericks are getting the most points from their reserves off the bench. And, those are three really bad teams, especially in Washington and Dallas's case. And some of the best teams, like the Cavs, the Wolves, the Lakers, the Nuggets, they're all the four worst teams in terms of or at least effective teams in terms of points off their reserves. So, I mean, that does make sense, right? Like, they have great starting lineups, they have great star players, they're carrying the load for sure. That's going to happen. So it's not like a complete panic thing for me. But my least favorite thing is you do need some more efficiency outside of someone that's not Naz Reid, right? Like, we know what you're getting in Naz, and we're starting to see some things from certain Timberwolves players, which is a good step forward. But I agree, like, you're going to need more from your bench and your reserve players. That's not just Naz, if you are indeed going to make it, to the Western Conference Finals again, and obviously to the NBA Finals.
You'd like at some point, and there was an update that TJ Shannon is medically cleared for like 5-on-5 practice, but you do need someone to jump in there. And I mean, hell, the fact that we're still sitting here, getting into the meat of the second season of Rob Dillingham, and he's just like I think he still has the highest turnover rate per 36 minutes of anyone on the team by a pretty wide margin. And so you kind of hope that it's nice that Jalen Clark can come in as kind of a role player, but to this point, you are not equally replacing what Nickeil Alexander-Walker gave you with the three guys that you were kind of hoping would jump in. There's a lot of season left. But it can be pretty glaring, especially like Mike Conley is a good organizer, and there's certain games where you can lean on him. But Mike Conley is way past the point of being able to give you 18 or 21 points once or twice a week when needed. He's just not. He's not that guy. He can't get by defenders, and he's kind of there for like open threes at this point. Mike Conley offensively. Yeah.
Dillingham's getting traded for a point guard, I think, or he's going to be involved in a trade for a point guard at some point. I think
just
that's
like
what's
you'd be
going to happen.
selling so low on him.
I know
that's the thing.
I know, but I mean, they can't trust him enough, and they don't have time. And he might be good, but you don't know for sure. And they need an. To your point, they need an organizer who's not in a rocking chair. Yeah. And so, that's a tough one. I got one, and it might have started to clear itself up on Friday, okay? But let's talk about Ant's three-point shooting, which, by the way, on Friday was 5 for 11 against the Suns. That's a nice game. In fact, to Phil's point from before, he scored 41 points. But after he missed those 4 games and then came back up until Friday, he had only made 33% of his threes in the next 8 games. Right now, he's shooting 37.4%. Last season, he was otherworldly at 39.5%. I'm hoping that Friday is an indication that it's coming back, because Ant, if you go to the offseason before the 24-25 season, he spent a lot of his time before that season working on his three, and it worked really well. And he has certainly not consistently been anywhere close to that so far. 5 for 8 or 5 for 11 on Friday is a decent little start here. But just because he worked on his interior game more, posting up, things like that, doesn't mean that I want that 3-point shot to go away, because that was a critical part ultimately of the Wolves' success last season.
Yeah, I think he does go through. Even last year, I don't know if he had that bad of a 4-game stretch where I think he was 3 for 30 leading into that Suns game.
Yeah, he wasn't.
So I don't know that he had that bad of a 4-game stretch at any point, but he does oddly go through these spells where he's 1 for 10, 1 for 9. Overall, I think his increase in some of the mid-range numbers is balancing out his shot diet quite nicely. And that actually, I have a favorite thing off of Ant 2 to flip it here in just a second. But let's first shout out SeatGeek here. If you're looking for tickets to an upcoming game or concert, SeatGeek.
Most definitely. In fact, I'm on the SeatGeek app right now. I am looking at tickets for Badgers, Gophers, Avs, and the Wild, Packers, and the Vikings. Okay, let's say you're down on sports in this town, because I certainly get that. Well, SeatGeek also has tickets to upcoming concerts, Broadway shows here in town, comedy, music festivals, anything that you might want, any entertainment. In fact, I could say this: SeatGeek is a great place to get holiday gifts, because you're going to find tickets that your sports family might love, something like that. So check them out. And I've got a promotion code as well for you, Howls10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's right, Sports Dad can help you out. From me to you, Howls10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. Check out the app and make sure that when you get your seats, you get them from a reliable source. That's SeatGeek.
Also, Awaken 180 Weight Loss has helped our guy Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, contributor here on Score North, lose almost 25 pounds in the last few months. If you're looking to lose weight, maybe love the way you look again, improve how you feel, boost mobility, gain energy, maybe gain some confidence, you can get a head start before the holidays here. Listen, you got 3 days until Thanksgiving. Would it make you feel better going into the holidays if instead of waiting until January, you went to awaken180weightloss.com right now, 3 days beforehand, set a plan in place for the next few months to start losing weight while you still enjoy life. You can still go to Thanksgiving gatherings, go out to eat. They'll set you on a plan. 844-346-1800. That's 844-346-1800. Awaken 180 Weight Loss. Favorite thing, I would say, even with my criticism of Anthony Edwards the last week here, and again, we're kind of, for anyone that's wondering, what do you guys? You guys are attacking one of your own again. It's I think, rightfully poking at the gap between where he is right now and where he wants to be and where he can be. And so I want to balance that out by also saying the first 47 minutes of that game, and for him it would have been the first 39 of his 40 minutes, he responded wonderfully to some criticism and a couple of dud games, dropping 40 points on 24 shots, fairly locked in defensively for big chunks of that game. And just the 3-point shot coming back. He's getting to the free throw line at a high rate. I think my favorite thing here this week is, even with the train wreck last minute, this is probably the most balanced Anthony Edwards offensive game has been in the 6 years of him being in the NBA. The first year or two, it was very, very heavy. Like, he's either getting to the rim or he's chucking a three. And even the threes that he was chucking the first couple of years were kind of misguided, sometimes out of context. It feels like he's really settled into a high percentage of 3-point shots that are within the flow of the offense. He's not just going rogue. They're good looks, they're open looks. He's hitting them at like a 40% clip. But then he's filling in with that kind of mid-range, 8 feet out to the 3-point line, and he's hitting those shots at the highest percentage throughout basically his entire career. And he's making plays and seeing the floor. And so it's like, awesome. This is great. Can you fully lock it in the biggest moments of even some of the random games on the schedule? Because it's like he came out of the gate trying to show that ant was gone in the first maybe 12 games. But then this last week, you saw it creep in, just some of the inefficiencies, some of the old bad habits crept in. Even with the team, some of the bad habits crept in. Nip it in the bud and get back to being the guy that was in Phoenix the first 39 minutes of his 40 minutes and eliminate the Space Cadet stuff from that last minute. So generally, Anthony Edwards, this is the best version of him that we've seen. Let's keep tapping into it.
Yep. Yeah, consistency is the key. Consistency, absolutely. It really concerns you too when he starts to, especially against the bad teams, when he starts to regress there, because like that is the bugaboo.
Yeah.
But yeah, and look, I mean, I'm becoming more and more convinced too, though, that this roster It's largely intact, but I don't think it's fully intact. I think Conley's going to do some things. I think Conley's good. I think just because Conley did not make a summer trade doesn't mean there won't be a winter splash. And I think there might be. I could see. I think he's going to take a look at this thing after, as the deadline approaches probably, and say, what do we need to maybe get over the hump to get through the playoffs this time?
Yeah. He's always lurking. He's always
it's what a good
trade
GM does.
machine rumination.
You know what? It's what a good GM does. You're always lurking. You're always on. You're always looking for who you might have to kick off the island to put somebody who's better on it. Right?
He's whispering to people at coffee shops. Hey, come here for a second.
I love the fact. I think that's
Wolves
one of the
fan?
funniest things of all time. Tim Conley. Hey Tim, I'm with Score North. What day of the week is it, Tim? I'm not going to tell you. You see Tim at a coffee shop. Hey, yeah, I'm thinking about trading a couple guys. I'll tell you about it.
I'm here on my lunch break, a big Wolves fan. Can you tell me what's the biggest blockbuster you got going right now? Oh, we're talking to Giannis.
Yeah, Julius out of here. All right.
So it's going to be Julius and Jaden to the Bucks.
I'm trying
and
to
then
decide.
Giannis coming back
Here
here.
are the cap figures. You check these out. What do you think of these cap adjustments? My favorite thing is actually the Wolves' pace of play, a quicker pace of play. They entered Friday 16th in pace. Now you might say,
wow, look at
16th,
Judd. Deep
16th.
analytics.
This is from The Athletic. Krasinski had this. I stole it from him, but it's still good. Okay, so the Wolves, 16th, and you're saying, okay, that's okay, but what's the big deal? Last season, 25th. 23rd in 2023, 24.
Yeah.
They are averaging 15 fast break points per game this season, which is 14th in the league. 13.6 last year, ranked 26th. 2 years ago, 12.4, 29th. So they are playing at a quicker pace now. It's not so much Gobert gets the ball, guys come back to help get the ball back from him, and you sort of slow the entire process down. This is in some ways a young man's game that moves very fast, and the fact that the Wolves' pace is picked up, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah, I think and they've got enough athletes. I feel like, especially when Rudy Gobert isn't out there, get up and down, man. Like, just use your athletic ability. And in theory, TJ Shannon should be able to. Have we confirmed? Was he hurt before he was officially listed as hurt, and that's the reason why he was just a no-show in the first 5 games? I can't imagine that dude was fully healthy and that lost on the court, but it'd be nice to get the version we think we saw in there during some playoff spurts against the Lakers or whoever. It'd be nice if he could come back and join that pace party. So, Dex, favorite thing?
Yeah, I'll just continue to harp on how awesome Julius Randle has been to start this year. So if you look just across the board, career highs in so many different categories, from effective field goal percentage to true shooting percentage, win shares per 48 minutes. That is also currently a career high for him. His on-court and on and off metrics too per 100 possessions, best of his career. He's just having a great year, man. It was a little bit of a slow, clunky start last year, and then he came back from the injury. And there was some highs in the playoffs, and there was certainly some lows, but it really feels like from start to finish so far through the first 16 games, and hopefully the finish, we continue to see this, I should say, that Julius Randle has evolved here into a legit. Everyone keeps asking who's going to be the Robin to Anthony Edwards. I mean, it's clear as day. It's Julius Randle. So Julius Randle continues to have a really awesome start to this season.
He is body of work having an awesome start. I agree with people who are annoyed by some of his old Julius things in the last minute or two of that Phoenix game. He is the Robin to Ant's Batman right now. Can they win a championship with Julius Randle as the Robin to Ant's Batman? I think is a valid question. And the trade deadline is still a couple months away, like 2.5 months away. So we'll see.
Are the parts around the duo from Gotham City, are they good enough too?
So you're saying around Batman and Robin?
Yeah.
The Alfreds?
Yeah.
The Batgirls?
Exactly.
How deep in the weeds do you want to go with
Well,
Batman?
I mean, if you're going to
go
if you're going to go into the Batcave,
Robin's dead circus family, is that?
If you're going to go into the Batcave,
that's Dick Grayson Robin. There's multiple iterations of Robin too. So
okay, yeah.
Yep.
I'm talking comic book or the TV show in the 60s. Not the movies, not the movie franchise.
Okay.
But is there enough around when you go to the Batcave? Do you have enough there beyond the two main characters?
Who's the Alfred? Mike Conley is probably the Alfred, right? It's like the old savvy. He's there to serve, but he's probably if it gets too physical, he's probably going to be in
tapping
trouble.
out.
Yeah.
No, not for me.
It actually might be Chris Finch. Chris Finch might be the Alfred.
Okay.
Like it might be the coach. Might be the coach there.
Yeah. I mean, people there's a lot of people that are, especially after Friday night, just out on Chris Finch. I need to know. Let's be a little bit careful here with.
Well,
he still has the ear of the superstar of the organization, and so I need to know who. If you're going to replace Alfred, I want to know who the new butler is, okay?
I love to overreact in basketball and hockey seasons if there's like a 5-game span where things look bad, okay? But just as a one-off, I feel like the Raptors game that I referenced that was not covered in Toronto last year, I feel like it was exactly like this. Like it was one game and everybody freaked out.
Yeah.
But like, how much is this worth freaking out for? I mean, it was bad. Don't get me wrong. It's bad. And if this was a string, like the Vikings have strung together some really bad games in which they're dumb, and that's disturbing. But like, this is one bad game. So like, how much credence do we give this?
So let's drill down on this for just a second. Do we all agree that this team, even as successful as they have been, exhibits some low basketball IQ traits that are disturbing more often than you would like?
And that's been a Finch. Been a Finch team problem.
Okay, so I feel like people are disproportionately blaming Finch for the team having a low basketball IQ, when it's possible that you might have a bunch of players that aren't exactly galaxy brain players, but they are good at other things. I'd be curious to know, like, if you ask Tim Connolly, do you agree that this is a oftentimes low IQ basketball team that was bad in clutch time, like literally kept banging their head against the same wall in clutch time, right? I think it can be more of a reflection on players and roster when you get to this level than coaching, but not to exonerate Finch entirely.
I was going to say, but don't you find it a little bit intriguing that we've had this discussion for like 2 years and players have definitely changed? Like, I do wonder, if this was the first time, then I would say, yeah, it's on them. But I feel like we talked about this the last 2 years of like who gets exonerated. I'm not saying it's all on Finch. I am saying it's interesting that this is a recurring theme with his teams.
I would say that if Tim Connolly, and I realize that I put a lot of trust into some Viking stakeholders to make the right decisions on quarterbacks and have been burned on that, but I feel like Tim Connolly has earned a lot of trust, a lot of benefit of the doubt, a lot of great roster building successes. If Tim Connolly decides, you know what, I think Mike Malone would be a better final piece to this as a coach to get this team over the hump. Okay, cool. I want to know who. Because sometimes I think what we do as media, sports fans, talking heads like us, you're pissed about something because the team isn't performing the way that you want, and you want someone to be held accountable and fired because it would make you feel good in the moment to do that. But would it actually be the best move for the franchise or the organization moving forward?
No.
And if we get to that point with Finch, we can have that conversation. But I feel like it skews more toward, I'm pissed about what happened on Friday, and it would make me feel good if Finch got fired because of it.
Why would
you got to separate those two things.
Yeah, and why would you fire a guy who's taking you to back-to-back Western Conference Finals and does a lot of good? And like you said, and in basketball, this is super important, the superstar likes him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just to be very clear, I'm just bringing up this topic. I do not think, just to be extremely clear, Chris Finch does not deserve to be fired.
And I cannot be more clear.
Nor should one game, because I know what's going to happen. The selective listeners are going to think that I called for his job. I just think it's interesting. But yes, he has one game. Again, what is the credence of one game? Everybody has meltdowns during the course of long seasons. Now, if you string together a month of meltdowns and bad games, then I think we have a discussion.
unless they lose to the Kings tonight, then I want him fired. If they lose to his job is on the line tonight. But if they get past the Kings tonight, then he's back off the hot.
10-0 against losing teams. 0-6 now because the Suns are a winning team against winning teams. They still have yet to beat a team above 500.
If this, maybe I'm spoiling Hot Take Wednesday here, Wolves Hot Takes, but I actually feel better about the 10-0 against bad teams than I feel bad about the 0-6 against good teams. I actually love that for the most part, because Phoenix had a winning record, even though I would probably put Phoenix in more of a bad team bin than a good team bin.
Surprising.
But I feel like it's a great sign that they have locked it in and taking care of business against the bad teams to this degree. I'm kind of shocked by it actually.
So I think if you look at it, you parse it apart a little bit. I think the 10-0 against the bad teams is actually like an overall achievement. It's because they have played so poorly against bad teams in previous seasons. I think the 0-6 has to be pulled apart, though, like the turkey. You got to pull it apart and look at it because it's different games. Like
there's a couple. Anthony Edwards didn't play in a couple
exactly.
of
So like 10-0 to me is okay. You're getting this right. 0-6 is not, well, you can't beat good teams. You literally have to look at each game separately there because, like, the Phoenix game does not belong in the same bin that a game that Ant didn't play in belongs.
Yeah. So, all right, a lot of ground covered there on the State of the Wolves Monday here.
Yeah, start get Chris Hines back on the road. Come on, seriously?
Seriously.
I subscribe to your website. What more?
Me too.
I support you.
I am too.
You're not supporting sports, Dan.
No. Send him out there. Send his ass out to Sacramento right now.
Is the Zolgad Substack more expensive right now than the Star Tribune?
No. The Star Tribune per month is, I'm paying 20 something a month for it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I canceled the print. I don't know. I called up because the print now, the sports page is 4 pages, and starting I think January 1, it's going to be printed in Des Moines, and the deadline's going to be 5:30 p.m. or something, so you'll get no scores.
But you're paying for the online product too,
right?
Where they are putting time stories on.
But the print, I was paying like $115 every 3 months for the print and the website. So I called up and canceled the print because I'm like, it's not worth it. As much as I love the print, hurts me to say this, but I did. But the website, when I talked to the Star Tribune rep, who I don't think was based here, when I talked to the Star Tribune rep, I think I'm paying like $20, $21, $22 a month for it.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could get Chris on a flight right now to Sacramento. Okay?
I mean, I'm just saying, if I'm not paying, like, what am I paying for? I want somebody at these games, and the Star Tribune the Star Tribune should be there.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to call my Star Tribune rep too, and express these complaints later today. And then I'm going to call my Pioneer Press rep, and then I'm going to call my Athletic.
You don't get
rep.
the Pioneer Press.
I'm going to call my Dane Moore NBA podcast rep as well. All right, that's a wrap on Flagrant Howls, a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See you guys.